just took off running toward this mountain. And I was running, tears were rolling down my face. I had this sense of like, if I just keep running, I can run away from my fate. And at the top, I just threw my arms up to the sky and said, I'm miserable in the extreme and I see no way out. And in that moment, I literally felt this sense of calm wash over me and this brilliant light emanate all around me. And this voice came out of the light and it said, can't you see you've come home?
Mm.
You'll stay here and heal yourself and many others. Greetings, beloveds. This is Suzanne Ross. I'm so excited to be on your superior self with Trey Downs.
Beautiful, Suzanne. Thank you so much for taking the time. This is going to be a fascinating conversation. I just love your energy. It fires me up every time I speak to you. So thank you for taking the time.
I'm so grateful to be on your show, Trey, and thank you for continuing to do this amazing show and having great guests.
So it's been a while since we last spoke, a couple of years. I want to know what are you up to today?
You know, my focus right now primarily are these events that I'm hosting in Sedona because I do two a year. I do a large conference in March, and then I do a smaller, more intimate retreat experience in September. They're meant to be around the spring equinox and the fall equinox. We don't always hit it right on those dates because of the venue availability, but our intention is to bring people into this powerful vortex of Sedona, which is really a spiritual mecca. And then we organize a gathering of like minded souls to really come together to experience that unity community. And then we bring in these really powerful speakers and teachers, Trey, that have the ability to really elevate the consciousness and open the hearts of all of the people present. And so that's really my true calling. That's my passion. I feel compelled to do these events. And I just am in such a place of deep gratitude that speakers say yes, vendors say yes, and attendees say yes to coming to these events because it really raises the consciousness of those who attend. But our intention is to really raise the collective consciousness. So the events are a big part of what I do. I also guide journeys for people out here in Sedona, taking them into these sacred vortex sites. I do sessions with people live and online. And I just started a new project that is my school. So I came up with an acronym, SACRED, and it stands for Spiritual Academy Courses and Resource for Enlightenment and Divinity. So the seal is sacred, and I teach these courses, the Transcendence Guide course, a spiritual guide certification course. And so at the end of these courses, my students get certified under this seal sacred. I'm working on the website now. So those are some of the things that I'm really excited about being involved with and offering.
Wow, it sounds like you have a lot of free time on your hands. Like you're just doing nothing with your time. Like what I don't know, what are you doing over there? So much stuff happening where you're at. So let's give some of the newer listens some context about your journey. I really think it's fascinating. I think you and I can really relate on our we have very similar paths. So I know you have a corporate background, and I'm very excited to share your story. How did this start for you, right? Like, how do you go from corporate world, corporate America, East Coast mentality to living in Sedona, Arizona, holding spiritual retreats, intimate retreats, and working on consciousness?
Like yourself, I had kind of a profound awakening experience. And I think you had a great definition for that earlier, existential shock. Right.
Yeah, existential shock.
I love that. Yeah, I was working in the corporate world and living on the East Coast and just feeling so misaligned and even displaced. I was actually born in Redding, California, which is in Shasta County. I was born at Shasta County Hospital. And so, as a young child growing up in the area of Mount Shasta, going out on Lake Shasta with my family, it was a pretty magical, mystical upbringing. And then at the early age of 3, we then moved from Northern California and we ended up living in Ohio. And so, it's interesting how, like, at that young age, you go from being like really immersed in a magical, mystical place, or even like kids are just fresh off the veil and they're having all of these like psychic experiences, right? And then kind of getting thrust into, more of just, being a kid and being more attached to your ego identity and dropping into school and all that kind of thing, right? And it was about at the age of 28 that in on the East Coast, working in the corporate world, I started to have once again these experiences of feeling like I was kind of tapping in to another realm again, while still trying to live this life, the societal programming, the American dream, this is what it's meant to look like, who dies with the most toys wins mentality. And just, waking up every day, fighting brutal traffic, to go to work, to fight brutal politics, the mean spirited politics of the corporate world that I was experiencing, where everyone's just like walking over each other, throwing each other under the bus, to try to get to the top. And that just didn't resonate with me. Also, in the particular corporate environment I was in, there was a lot of deceit. Like, you were being asked to, manipulate numbers, to try to like show, different outcomes that weren't real. Like, and there was sexual harassment and just like all of these things that were such low vibe. And it just didn't resonate with me. And it started to affect me on a physical level. I had a multitude of physical ailments. My hair was falling out in clumps. I had eczema all over my skin. I was underweight, overstressed. And I just walked out into my kitchen one morning and said, there has got to be more meaning and purpose to life than this. Like, being on this gopher wheel, going nowhere, just every day doing the same thing, and it just lacked meaning and purpose. And this isn't what I signed up for. And I knew it. But I was at the point of being like, if this is all there is, like, I'm out of here. And in that moment, the phone rang, and it was my parents calling from the desert of Southern California, inviting me to come out and stay with them. And like, this is December in New Jersey, Trey. It's like blizzarding. And
Yep.
I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what I need, a break from it all. And that's when I said yes to going on to this trip that changed my life dramatically.
Wow. Yeah, I think it was you went out there and your work gave you an ultimatum, right? Like, go out. If you go out there, you're done, right? And you said, well, see you later.
I did, because I knew that life was literally killing me. And it was self-preservation, right? Like, I hadn't
Sure.
spent time with my family in so long. This is so typical. Like, not to just beat down on but this was my personal experience in the corporate world, where I signed up for this job with this promise of work-life balance, right?
Hmm.
That was not it
Hmm.
at all. Like, so I just said, okay, fine. If I don't have a job to come back to, so be it. I'm peace out. I'm going to visit my family in the desert of Southern California.
I
And
don't blame
then,
you. I don't blame you. But a lot of people are probably feeling like so connected with you on this. I feel like a lot of people are feeling that way right now, especially in the times that we live where I feel like the American dream has changed. It's not the same anymore. Like I feel like people were starting to wake up to the illusion of that. Like what did it used to mean, right? But we were programmed about what the American dream looked like and how you get there. So if that's not the truth, like what is the truth? Like what is it that we're doing here, right? And for yourself, it was a journey. And you basically said, I'm out. I'm going to the West Coast. I'm going to go hang out with my family and I'm going to reconnect with the version of myself, the truest part of myself to find my own answers. And you did all of that, but then you had I guess like, and I don't want to project this, but I feel like you had this spiritual awakening or like this peak experience on a mountain where you had this realization, right? And I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit and just give them some insight on like what that did for you.
I do. And, but before we go to that, keep them in suspense. I just want to speak to what you were saying about the American Dream Tray, because there's two ways you can go with this. Like, yes, you can get out and do something different, and or you can stay in and make a difference, right, to that world, because we still need production. We still need, goods. We still need banking. There's not an alternative to that yet, right?
Sure.
So you can get out and go do something completely different, something that feels more aligned with your soul's, calling. And you can make a difference in that environment, right?
Mhm.
And so I think, and you could still, be in that environment and do all of your spiritual practices and, maybe have a positive impact on your coworkers and maybe on the management, or maybe you're in management and you have the power to bring in wellness programming. You know, I wanted to make that point because it doesn't always mean that, you have to escape. We still need business and we still need, like I said, manufacturing and production and, all these things that makes this, world go round, right?
Sure, 100%.
And so I just felt, yeah, compelled because I have a lot of clients who come to me who say, yeah, okay, I'm in banking. I had a guy recently, I'm in banking, I'm in a high level position, and, but I had this spiritual awakening and it's really stressful where I'm at. And I see the effect it's having on my coworkers, the people around me, like, they're so stressed out. And I really, I care about them and I want to make a difference in my workplace.
Mm.
And while at the same time, I do have a vision for maybe something different, but I've got two homes. Like I got this life that I kind of enjoy. Like there's nothing wrong with having a nice car and a nice home and nice things. And if the job you're in provides you that, then maybe navigate this society that we're living in, rather than escaping from it too. Like, I think that's an important concept that we can explore as
Mm.
well.
Sure. Yeah, I think positioning yourself in the society to make the most impact. Like Yogananda always tried to run away to the Himalayas. And it was like, you can't run away to the mountain every time, right? Like you have to be able to bring that awareness to where you're at, no matter where you're at, right? Like you can make a safe space in your house, you can make it wherever you live, in the basement, whatever that may look like for you, and connect with that. But you just can't run away from everything. Like you have to sit in it. And again, to your point, go within and to really make the interchange. But going back to the mountain, right? You're on top of this mountain. You're having this incredible experience. Like, can you explain that?
Yeah, so I did go visit my parents out in the desert and they had a home there, and while I was there, I was experiencing the love of family, and just the joy of being in the beautiful wilderness and hiking and biking. And we would sing and dance, and we were just like rejoicing. And I hadn't experienced that for such a long time. But then my vacation was coming to a close, and I literally felt consumed with this impending doom of having to return to my life in what felt like hell, especially comparatively, right? And so on a morning before I was going to go back to the East Coast, I felt compelled to run toward this mountain range behind their house. And it was dawn. I just took off running toward this mountain. And I was running, tears were rolling down my face. I had this sense of like, if I just keep running, I can run away from my fate. But I literally ran up the side of this mountain. And at the top, I just threw my arms up to the sky and said, I'm miserable in the extreme and I see no way out. And in that moment, I literally felt this sense of calm wash over me and this brilliant light emanate all around me. And this voice came out of the light and it said, can't you see you've come home?
Mm.
You'll stay here and heal yourself and many others
So did you hear that voice like audibly? Like, or was it,
audibly.
yeah? And was it,
Yes.
have you heard that voice since?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. I hear an audible voice, and it's like instructions, usually confirmation, affirmation. It feels like it's within me and all around me. It's outside and inside. It's everywhere.
Hmm.
That's all I can, describe it as. It's an inner knowing, but there's also an outer source.
Hmm. That's beautiful. I think that is important because one, we don't experience, maybe we don't, maybe some people do, maybe some people don't, like an audible voice. Usually how I experience the soft voice inside is usually either, through a thought or an experience where it's, well, again, it's all relative to the experiencer, but some people experience communication in colors, symbols, things of that nature. To actually audibly hear it, to me, is fascinating because it's like, who is that? Who is speaking that? And you're by yourself on top of a mountain and you hear this audible voice giving you instructions of what to do. And so, and you stayed in Arizona, like you started your healing center and you were married to a guy on the East Coast. Like, how did that go?
And so this was in the desert of Southern California on a mountaintop there. And I stayed in California. So there
Mm,
in the desert, I opened my wellness center. I based on the guidance that I was given. So yes, and I was married on the East Coast and ended up leaving my husband, moving to the desert and opening a wellness center. I had a hypnotic regression with Laurie McDonald, well-known hypnotic regressionist, many, 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 many years later, 25 years later. And in this hypnotic regression, I was shown because I always wondered what happened on the mountaintop. Who was speaking to me? Like, what was this? And in the regression, we were shown that at that moment, there were two beings who emerged from the inner earth and surfaced. There was a man and a woman. They were blonde hair, blue eyed, dressed in blue clothing. And they had a woman in between them who looked just like me. And they asked, can she walk into you? And I said, yes. And she walked into me, turned around, and looked out.
mm,
And that made so much sense to me, Trey, because in that moment, I was merged with my higher self and I was aligned with my true calling. The woman who ran up the mountain was not the woman who ran down. Let's say she was merged with a higher version of herself. So there was still the old self with all the remembrance of all the memories of who I am, okay? But there was a higher version of myself who I became in that moment. I was spontaneously healed in that moment. And I was filled with excitement and enthusiasm. And I had this inner knowing that what had been spoken was the absolute truth for me. And I would become a healer in the desert. And nothing in my entire life had ever felt more true. It was aligned with my authentic self, right? And so, the voice may have been the voice of these inner earth, what felt to me like Lemurians. Mind you, I was born in Shasta County near Mount Shasta, where you have the inner earth Lemurians in this city of Telos that so many people have spoken about. This inner earth Agartha network where these, higher, more advanced, maybe fifth, sixth, seventh dimensional beings, what have you, like had, survived after the sinking of Lemuria, and not to totally go off, topic, but I really felt like that's, it was shown in this hypnotic regression that that's what had happened.
Mhm.
These were the beings that were speaking to me, that were facilitating this merging. And so, that's what I was shown happened in that moment.
So through a regression, you saw the experience from, I guess, either from that ex from you from in that particular moment, or were you the observer of the moment?
I was the
The
observer,
observer of the moment.
but also had the perspective of being who I was being in that moment, facing those two beings, seeing the woman in between them who looked just like me, and re-experiencing what it felt like to have her come in to me and then look out.
Hmm.
And even the perspective of looking out, because you see, the desert looked entirely different to me after that merging experience. And I've had this happen multiple times since then, of experiencing the reality of how it looks, as we all see the reality before us. And then suddenly, in this expansion of into higher consciousness, everything is suddenly sparkling. It's like sparkling with golden light, and all of the colors seem fluorescent, and everything seems like fluid and malleable, and you peer into the reality and get insight into how it really is, right? Pixelated, fluid, malleable, right? And
Hmm.
so, in these moments, and I talk about this in my book, Rise Up. I talk about my story in my book, Wake Up, and take others on a journey of self discovery like I went on. But then in Rise Up, I sort of talk about these magical experiences out in nature where you have this expansion of consciousness, where you realize everything is consciousness, and you're the person, you as a conscious being are one with it, and actually, have this like role as the producer, the director behind, the scenes, who can impact the unfoldment.
Hmm. So beautiful. What did it feel like when that energy merged with you? Do you remember it in that moment? Do you remember when you were physically standing there and all you could hear was this audible voice? Did you feel like there was an energy merging with you? And if not, when you were in the regression, what did that feel like?
So, as a recollection, I felt like I was sort of outside of myself in a way that I knew that there was something very magical and miraculous happening. And it was like this experience of just being in awe, just almost suspended in awe as this merging was happening, but I didn't witness those beings. It was like I was in a state of suspension, suspended in awe, not really aware of what was happening in as much as I was in this amazing energy. And I felt like there was a presence of higher beings that were allowing for this miracle to unfold. So it was more of a state of suspension and awe and the awareness of a higher presence. Okay. And then in the regression, it was like this hidden memory was revealed. And so, in that sense, it became a remembrance of
Mm,
what had happened and this inner knowing of, oh, yeah, that's what happened. Thank you. You know, grateful for Lori and her ability to facilitate this hypnotic regression so that the memory could be revealed in the remembrance was a knowing.
I love that. So when you before you had the regression and you're having this experience and you didn't know exactly what it was, you just had this peak experience. How did your life change? Did it change? How did you bring that energy? How did you bring that experience into your real life?
I went from being fearful, I was having anxiety attacks, being rushed to emergency with anxiety attacks because I thought I was having a heart attack. This happened back east before this event. They tried to put me on like meds. I tried to take them. They made me feel really spacey. And I did not like that feeling. So I didn't want to take them, but I kept them in my bathroom medicine cabinet in case that happened so that it prevented me from having my heart racing, which felt scary. But just the knowing that I could take that if needed. And then I started to realize I was bringing it on myself, but that's where I was at, anxious, fearful, depressed, all of that causing these medical, you know, hair falling out and eczema and all this. That's the person who ran up the mountain. After this experience, I was filled with so much enthusiasm and excitement over this prospect of being a healer in the desert. I ran down the mountain. I felt like I was being guided by a force. And also this like voice. And now it was more of what you said, the inner voice, this, soft inner voice sort of saying, do this, do that. That morning, I ran back to the house, jumped in the shower, changed my clothes, went to the nearest five-star resort, walked up to the front desk, said, I'm here to apply for a job in wellness. The gal said, oh, you must have seen the ad. I was like, okay. Human resource person came out, led me to this office. She was so nice. Hey, hi, thanks for coming. Tell me about yourself and what are you here for? And I just, I was following the guidance. This is like intuitive guidance, a voice. I felt like I was almost above myself, watching myself go through the motions. They called in the general manager. She said, hi, welcome. We'd love to have you. When are you available to start? Apparently, there was a position to become this director of fitness and recreation, like at this resort. I ended up getting hired as a fitness instructor, actually teaching water aerobics and teaching aerobic classes. And I was like, yes, I'll take it. And they said, can you start in 2 weeks? And I said, yes. And they said, well, welcome to the family. And there was like no real qualifications to do that. Yeah. So one of these like magical miracle things that unfolded. And as I was walking through the parking lot, I was like, this is surreal. What have I done? And on the other hand, I have never felt so alive, right? So sure of anything in my life before. This is it, right? So I
That's a
called my husband and
beautiful.
said, I need to talk. Went home, left my husband, bought some videotapes of how to teach an aerobics class, how to teach water aerobics. And in 2 weeks, I was doing just that.
That's a wonderful story. But I think that speaks to your point of we should build a bridge, right? Like for people that are in the careers, right, that don't have the ability to completely run. I mean, still, it takes courage to do what you did. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying, like, I think people hear that and immediately people are like, have fear that's associated with that, like that, if that makes sense. I mean, I know for myself, the bridge that I'm building, it's got to be a sturdy one, right? It's got to be strong because I'm bringing a family, I'm bringing kids, I'm bringing everybody. And so, um, the courage that is needed to take the step across is huge, but you got to make sure that bridge is going to hold you. And I think what you did, right, like so many people do, is they get to a breaking point. But you had this great experience, is this whisper or this voice telling you, guiding you, and that gave you faith. That gave you an awakening. A lot of people don't have that. A lot of people just have this feeling inside of them of like this reality. Like, what is it? I think they get to the breaking point of like, I just can't deal with the negativity anymore. And they just don't know what to do with it. And is this all there is? And I think that leads them down a path of exploration for sure. And they get to a point well, I know that what I'm doing right now doesn't give me fulfillment, and I need to find another way, another position, another path. And sometimes they find it, and sometimes they don't. Most of the time, they stay where they're at, and then they experience um, illness, cancer, anxiety, depression, all of these things that are closely associated with their environment, and they don't know how to get out. Which I love is that you're helping people get out. That you're helping people, your clients, build that sturdy bridge for themselves to take uh, back to their realities, to walk across with their families, and or with a new perspective. Like either you're going to walk across the bridge into a new reality, or let's say that isn't for you. You're going to stay where you're at, but you have a different perspective about what your calling is now. It's not so much quitting your job. It's how can you be different in your job to make changes to your environment? Because once you change, then your environment changes, right? I feel like that anyway. You're recreating your reality. And I think the most important part of that entire rant is this. Once you have these revolutionary, mystical experiences, how do you sustain those over time? Because I feel like there are, it's great when you're on that mountain, but when you come down, you get hit in the face with life and all the contrast that's associated with that. How did you, Suzanne, like maintain that for yourself, that energy, that vibration to pursue your dream, but to navigate life as well?
Such great insight, Trey. And you bring up so many interesting things to explore. I want to go back to the bridge for a second because I think that's so incredibly important. And, an analogy that you presented before we started this interview today. And then, I responded by saying, that's exactly the analogy I use with my clients. So, that was kind of interesting. So I want to back up a bit and talk about the bridge for a second. So even on the East Coast, I had come to a point before the experience on, going to Southern California, where I had been working for a particular corporation, and it just, I'd come to a head with it where it was like, I just can't work here anymore. Um, and I took a short break and thought, what is a career or industry that I could go into that might be a better fit? And so what I found was an organization that in New Jersey that specialized in health and fitness, with this like uh, health club and spa. Mind you, it was still, a corporate environment in the way that it was run as like a place that had multiple facilities. But I was able to like go in and start as someone at the front desk who was just handing out towels and checking people in. From being a corporate executive, I went to that because I just wanted to be in the environment. Ultimately, I got promoted, and pretty soon I was sitting in an upper office doing profit and loss statements, doing payroll, and again, like it felt like, how did I end up in this environment that's so much more aligned? And suddenly, like, it's back to working in an office, and it's back to feeling like I'm in kind of a corporate position again. Right. But I got some insight into seeing like the personal trainers and the nutrition coaches, and if I felt like that's what I want to be and do. But, I ended up in a corporate position again. And so I just wanted to bring that in to say that you can build a bridge by trying, a different industry that still may feel like it's within the matrix, but may be more aligned with the type of environment that you want to be in. Clearly, I walked away from that, had my experience on the mountaintop, and lo and behold, right, ended up opening my own fitness center. And so that experience then became valuable to what I ended up ultimately doing on my own for myself. Right. And so we know that anything that we end up moving into that feels more in alignment, everything we've done before culminates to give us the skills and the qualifications to do it effectively and to be successful at it. And so I just wanted to, like go back to that bridge to say, I was trying to build a bridge and then ultimately ended up sort of back in the corporate position again and still living back east. And that's not where the alignment was. And then this experience on the mountaintop. How have I sustained it? Because when you're really aligned with your authenticity, of course, it introduced me to like the spiritual path, because I wondered what in the heck had happened on the mountaintop is so magical and miraculous. I started following what I call the Hay House brand of spirituality, right? Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, Marianne Williamson. Like I started listening to Wayne Dyer on like cassette tapes, right? This is back in the 90s. And I just, his teachings really resonated with me. And so I started buying books on spirituality, exploring that, working in fitness and health and well-being as a personal trainer and wellness coach. It just, the passion I have for enhancing the lives of others by improving, their well-being, initially physically through fitness and nutrition, but ultimately I started teaching yoga classes, practicing meditation, and then I got married, moved to Northern California, and in Northern California started started working for a health and wellness complex that allowed me to start teaching integrative wellness for the mind, body, and spirit.
Hmm.
And unbelievably, I mean, there's so many miraculous events along the way I talk about in my book, Wake Up, that led me to the point of having the courage to bring spiritual teachings, meditation, breathing practices, like into the fitness programming that I was hired to do at this wellness center. But it was well received. And then I was able to really step in to teaching spirituality and guiding people in that regard. And even it was well received by, the members. And being able to do that at that club really is what allowed me to then write my books, speak, teach. And then I was called to move to Sedona back in 2015, and have now been here for 9 years.
I hear it's a different place over there. Like it is just a different energy.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's such a powerful high vibe frequency. And just the opportunity to come here and be here and serve here was such a blessing. It came to me in a vision, Trey, back in 2014. And now I'm revealing my age, which is fine. That it was my 50th birthday. And I asked my husband to take me to the Grand Canyon. And before that, I had a vision about this Red Rock City. Unbelievably, even though now I'd been on a spiritual path really for decades, I, living in Northern California, had never heard of Sedona, which was unbelievable. But I felt like she presented herself to me in just the right time. And so I said, can we, on our way to or from the Grand Canyon, go to this place called Sedona? Because she had come to me in the vision. And then I went to work after that vision, and all these people coming up to me, showing me pictures of Sedona on their phone. Have you and Scott ever been to Sedona? Like, you would love Sedona. Scott loves dune buggies, and they're like, dune buggies are street legal, and there's crystal stores everywhere. And we were like, wow, okay, let's go check it out. When we came into Sedona through Oak Creek Canyon, I mean, that's the best way to come in. And I started to see these red rocks. I knew that they were temples. I called them Red Rock temples. And I had felt like I'd come home. I wept, like we were both just speechless and breathless, like so many are when you first see Sedona. Then, as we started to experience Sedona, I had this sense of remembering the future. Like, I would go into stores, these crystal stores, and I would be like, wow, like I recognize that person behind the counter. Like, I recognize this place as if I'd been there before, but I knew I never had. I was remembering the future. I was starting to feel like a resident. I'm like, oh, yeah, I live here. It's like, no, you don't. Well, it feels like I do. And the prospect of us moving to Sedona was unfathomable. My husband worked in Silicon Valley in telecom, like, and I worked at this club full time. Like, how could we leave it just seemed unfathomable. Lo and behold, we get home, and 2 weeks later, my husband gets laid off, and we're shocked. And so he says, no problem. I got a great reputation in telecom. I'll get hired here in the Silicon Valley. No problem. Nobody's answering his calls. Nobody's responding to his emails. He's like, what's happening? Then he remembers that he used to work for a company in Phoenix. I mean, he used to contract for a company in Phoenix while still living in Northern California. He was designing this telecom equipment. And I said, you know what? He called them and they were like, oh, okay, possibly it could happen, but they weren't really getting back. I said, drive there and be in the parking lot on Monday morning. And he goes, you know what? I'm going to do it. They hired him. On the way home, he goes, are you sitting down? They hired me. I'm going to start my job in Phoenix. And he goes, and we'll move to Sedona. And I
Wow.
was like,
What does
what?
that do for you and your trust of the universe, right? Like we get so fearful about how we have to control the outcomes. We have to have our hands in the pot when it comes to creating our reality, we're creating our future. We have to say the affirmations the correct way. We have to make sure we're thinking and envisioning the future and then making sure our heart is aligned with that to put out this electromagnetic field. Like, what does that do for you when you have these experiences? Like, what does that do for your trust in the universe? Like, is the universe really guiding us the entire way, or are we creating that for ourselves?
It was fortunate that I was already engaging in deep meditations where that facilitated me having visions and this vision of this red rock town that unfolded. And when I came out of the meditation, there was poster board and I drew it. I drew the vision, which was red rocks. I even drew a house tray. And then I just kind of put that vision board in my closet. And then, you know, those people coming to me about Sedona and saying, wow, all these signs and symbols, let's go there, let's check it out. And then having the experiences here of remembering the future, feeling like I'd come home. Yeah. And then going home and everything falling into place. Like, I think it's so important to, when you start feeling the nudge, and maybe the nudge is coming to you through meditation, and maybe you're already having visions, to put them on a vision board. Like, I really believe in vision boards. I've drawn vision boards for years, and just, I go back to old vision boards, all of that has manifested. It's, unbelievable. It's, I mean, yeah, unbelievable, but
Everything.
it's believable.
Wow.
Even though when you're drawing it, it might seem unbelievable. It unfolds. Like, I have this great example because it might not always manifest in the way that you think it's going to. It's because you have to let go of that. You have to you can't be attached to like a very specific vision with specific details. It's really the overriding theme of what your, sincere desire is, with some generalities, and then open to the unfoldment, because now you're co-creating with the universe, and source who has a much higher perspective of, what would really be the best unfoldment in the end. And so when I moved here and a couple years into it, I was doing all kinds of things, because you really have the opportunity to tap into your highest potential, right? And network with the community. And so, all these things start expanding in all these different directions. And, like so many other people, I had this desire to have like a spiritual community, right? A property, multi acres. And there I'm going to build, like structures, and I'm going to teach, and, people are going to come. And I found this property that was actually fairly reasonably priced at the time, at about $1 million, but I didn't have $1 million. We tried to get investors. I was going to call it Spirit Ranch, but I had like an architect draw structures on the property, superimpose structures on the property, and I hung it on my wall in my office. And I just kept looking at it, looking at it, looking at it. It never happened. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Because I've got the vision board. Right? It's not happening. And then my husband's parents passed and left us their horse ranch in San Diego. And just recently, we started to imagine building a barn dominium on this horse ranch. And we were looking at what barn dominiums look like. And there's a picture on the computer screen of what these barn dominiums would look like on that property. And my husband turns and looks at the Spirit Ranch pictures on the wall. And he looks at me and goes, "Look, they look exactly alike or what?" And
Wow.
jaws just dropped down. I just got goosebumps all over telling you this.
Ooh. So tapping into your remembrance of the future and seeing these visions and then writing them down, are you tapping into what we consider the Akashic field, or do you think you're tapping into future timelines?
Past, present, and future exist all at once. Einstein was the first one to come out with the block universe and say that the future is affecting the present just as much as the past is affecting the present. Right. And now we know, like these causality loops in quantum physics, right? We know there's one eternal now moment where everything's happening all at once, right? And so there are moments where I believe we're perceiving the experience from the perspective of our eternal souls who see everything unfolding all at once. And in that moment of that connection, we can see past, present, and future, right? We can be who we are being in all those different timelines. And with that perspective, we can see the possibilities of all timelines. And, maybe through the orchestration of our higher self, spirit guides, mother, father, God, goddess, whatever you want to say, like in that moment, kind of direct, connected to source, it's all laid out. And we're shown a timeline that's going to be most beneficial to us in that moment to move us forward into it, to compel us toward it, to facilitate that timeline.
I love that answer. I feel like you're tapping into future, the now moment every time you speak, every time you answer a question. I feel like you're tapping into something and bringing a little bit of that back, that energy back to transmit that through this podcast so other people can be connected with that. And then we're truly interconnected at that point. Well, you know, if you want to look at it like this, we're always truly interconnected. We fall asleep to that. I think we're separate. But it's when we wake up, when we have these moments, these realizations, the manifestation of spiritual ranch, right? Having these manifestations of the healing centers, the manifestations of public speaking and helping people and having clients and building our bridge and walking across that bridge. It's like, oh, this is it. This is my purpose. This is what I was here to do. Like this is this is a playground. This isn't a hell. This is a playground for us to enjoy. But it's like when we get lost in that darkness, when we get lost in life, it seems like we can lose faith. And I think that's where I'm at as far as manifesting my own dreams is keeping that faith, strengthening that faith through the protocols that you're talking about, meditation and connecting with that future timeline possibility, emerging with that energy to bring it back into this reality so that I can walk across that bridge when it's built. And people are probably curious to how you built that bridge. Was it when you connect with those future possibilities or timelines, when you're in meditation, is there a certain meditation that you use? Is it the breath work? Is it a combination? Is it envisioning yourself through your imagination of where you want to be and how you want it to look, and then melding your current self with that vision? Like, what does it look like?
The meditations that I've engaged in, like everyone else who meditates, have changed, fluctuated. I'll, know that a certain meditation was powerful for me at one time, but maybe, for this particular time, it's another type of meditation that's allowing me to progress on my path. And then interestingly enough, like I may go back, to that original meditation that was really working for me at another time. And so, that's where the intuition really comes in, where you're dropping in and you're just following the guidance as to what at this particular point in my life resonates with me the most, as what frequency I'm at, what direction I feel called, what teachings are currently like at the forefront for me, what's coming up with my clients and or like family or friends or even in society, because it's about ourselves, but it's always also about our family, our friends, our acquaintances, our colleagues, and the larger world around us. What's happening and unfolding in the world around us so that we can direct our meditations toward healing ourselves, tuning into the intuitive guidance that we're meant to receive at that time, but also with that sincere desire to heal others, right? And to be offering the intuitive guidance to others, it's going to benefit them the most. And then expanding the vision into the wider world of like, what healing can I transmit, to the wider world? And what intuitive guidance am I receiving about what is happening, what is unfolding, and what's the greater meaning and deeper purpose behind it. So it's so multi-layered, isn't it?
Mhm.
Healing, intuitive guidance, premonition, and then always I'm coming back to, like, what am I learning from this? What's the deeper meaning and greater purpose behind it all, individually, collectively, and globally?
Well, I'm excited to learn more about your stuff and follow you more because I feel like you have your finger on the pulse. How can people find out more about you and how can they learn more about you? Where can they go? And I think you have a retreat coming up soon in the fall. How can people find out more about that and where can they purchase tickets if that's something they align with?
Thank you for asking, Trey. And I'm excited to share that. Before the podcast ends, I want to throw this back to you, Trey, and just say the reason that I'm able to respond with answers that hopefully are insightful is because of the questions that you ask. You were saying that you felt like I was tuning into something when I was bringing through. You are living your dream right here and now through serving in the way that you are through this podcast. You're intuitively tapping into the insight that you offer your viewers, also the questions that you ask. And so I just wanted to say, bravo to you for the courage to keep going with this amazing podcast. Your dreams are already coming through, seated in that bliss and gratitude about, what's already transpiring for you will no doubt keep leading you down the path and across the bridge to everything that you want to do, be, and have with your unlimited potential, Trey.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for that. That's much needed encouragement and such beautiful words and from a beautiful heart. So thank you.
You're so welcome. Yes, I invite all the viewers to come to Sedona. Like Trey said, I do these events. We have a retreat coming up September 19th through the 21st called the Sedona Transcendence Retreat. It's going to be psychics, channelers, and mediums demonstrating their gifts and teaching their techniques. All of our events include outdoor journeys into Sedona's sacred vortex sites. Shuttle buses pick people up, take them out to all these different sites. The presenters are guides on those journeys. We also have indoor workshops for more one-on-one interaction with the presenters, and of course, on-stage presentations and performances. We always have sound journeys, guided meditations. Just go to sedonatranscendenceretreat.com. You can use the coupon code TRANSCEND 444 for a
Mm.
10% discount, but reserve your seats early because we do sell out. This is being held at the Global Center for Christ Consciousness. I do
Mm.
another event in March called the Sedona Ascension Retreat, but we won't have that available till September. If you want to just come to Sedona and have a personal retreat experience, go to SuzanneRossTranscendence.com and click on retreats, and I can guide a personal retreat for you. Also, you'll find my courses, books, meditations there. So I look forward to seeing you. Feel free to email me anytime too. Suzanne at SuzanneRossTranscendence.com.
Mm. Wow, that's so amazing. Closing out, I want to know what is it on your heart that you feel called or pulled to say to the audience right now?
Believe in yourself. Believe in the divine plan that the one infinite creator, the divine source, has for us all here in this space-time hologram. Know that you volunteered to come here for the experience that's unfolding for you right here and now. God would not create experiences for us to have if it wasn't ultimately for our highest good. Honor the role everyone came here to play in this reality of duality. Always believe that everything is being orchestrated for the highest good for all. Even if you can't see it from that higher perspective, know that that's the truth, that God always has the highest outcome in store for all of us when we believe and when we love. Unconditional love for yourself and all others and for all that is.
Oh, Suzanne, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been magnificent.
Thank you, Trey. I so appreciate it. Mwah. Love and blessings to all.